Hello, it is Monday the 15th of July, and gosh, what a weekend we have had. Nothing though has put Bitcoin off. Last week we talked about how we were potentially, when we had this nasty drop down into the 55,000 area, we talked about this not being a place to sell, because if we could get back above this 200-day moving average and back above this 58,250 level, we would see some more upside. So we have bounced really nicely from a corrective pattern. Corrective pattern is this. This is a bigger equal measured move. When we did this move, it was a very nice equal measured move. Now we've done the bigger equal measured move, and also within this final leg, we've got this C leg 61.8 of the first leg. So by that I mean I measure from this. So let's take the equal one away. So I measure from this high to this low, and this swing we did was 61.8 of the first swing. That's very common in corrections. Now, when we bounce from here, we're going to come back into the middle of this range, and we're going to come back into moving averages here on the daily that are the wrong way round. By that I mean we're going up, and these moving averages are lined up bearishly. The 20 is below the 50, and when you do that and you come back to the 50, very often you hit resistance. And so that resistance comes in around 63,800. This is also this previous swing high, which is going to be quite an important profit taking level if we see that. But whenever you get back to these moving averages, when you've been underneath them, and especially if they're the wrong way round, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get through them. If we go back to the last time we did this, which is in January of this year, we came back to this daily 50, and we went and this previous swing high, and we went a little bit sideways, built a base before we could continue higher. And I think we could see the same. We can see this before when we have done it. We have bounced from the lows, we got up to this daily 50 moving average, and we had a pretty decent pullback before we continued higher. This daily 50 is like your backstop. So when you drop underneath the 20, that's where you come back to. And we can see it's really important, support and resistance. And here, for example, where we made a pretty nice double bottom, this is May 2023, so this is just over a year ago. Nice little double bottom here. We were looking to see if we were going to go higher, and we got knocked back at this daily 50 moving average, and we weren't done. But once we closed above it, this is one thing, the most important thing. When you close above this daily 50 moving average with momentum, you don't tend to come back and retest it. Look here, if we close above it, we tend to keep going until the swing is over. Here, we tend to keep going until this swing is over. So it's either going to act as resistance, or we're going to see quite an extended move. In that case, if we see one of the extended moves here, we're going to go to the top of this sideways range. Now there's a couple more reasons why I think this could be resistance. I'm going to just take these lines off. And the first one is, if we go from the high here, since this correction started in March, so if I measure from this high to low, you can see we bounced 50%. Then we had quite a deep pullback before we kept going higher. And if I move it down to this swing, keep it on this high, let's mark this 50% level. Let's take all my other markings off. You can see we bounced to the 50% level, back to the daily 50 moving average, and we kept going lower until we could get above it. If we move it down here, you can see first time back to this 50% level, we had a pretty decent 50% pullback before we kept going higher. So if we continue this pattern, here we are at this 63,600 level, coming up on that 50% level. So if we get a bearish reversal here, we could come back 50%. Back 50% would be a pretty nice look. It would set us up for potentially a nice big bullish pattern, an inverted head and shoulders pattern, something like that. It would bring us back to test the daily 50 moving average from the other side. So if you've got some FOMO, or if you haven't bought enough, or you wish you'd bought Bitcoin down here, or you wish, or you think it's really going, I have to say, I think we're in a really kind of volatile period, and potentially this, if we are looking for a pullback to buy, this is where we could get it from. And if we reverse at this 50% level, what you tend to do is then pull back 50%. So if we were to do that from here, we'd be looking back to retest our 58,250 level from the other side, wouldn't we? So potentially that's what we could see. We might not come back that far. If we spike a little bit higher and overshoot in a typical Bitcoin fashion, it could potentially be 59,000, which is where the daily 50 moving average. My only thing is, if we keep going today and if we do close above this daily 50 moving average, we are likely to spike much higher before this swing is over. So if we look at a close here above this level, we are not likely to come back and do a nice, back test for you. It tends to kind of keep going, and we might end up continuing till we get to the top of this range, and then we'd be looking for that bigger pullback. So at some point we are going to get that bigger pullback, and that's how I'm looking at it and trading. If I put my Heikinashii on, we've now gone pretty green. I think this is setting up a daily buy, but it's only going to be if we get above that daily 50 moving average. So on lower time frames, that's how I'm seeing Bitcoin. And I'm always really cautious about these moves early on a Monday morning before the US opens. All this nonsense about it being driven by, Trump, I do think is a little bit, now everyone's sure Trump is going to win. I think that there is a lot of uncertainty to come. I don't even know what to say about what's happened at the weekend, except that I can't, either that guy was that shot Trump was a complete patsy and set up because he couldn't get in his high school shooting team. The fact that he was even allowed on that roof, I just find unbelievable. And so, if this is a bigger plot, they'll have another go. Let's put it that way. I think we've got a lot of volatile times to come, and I'm not going to say any more than that. I don't want to fall into the big conspiracy trap. It was either complete incompetence or conspiracy. So let's recap where we are then. Here, 63,600, 50% of the retrace of this entire correction potentially could be a little bit of a worrying resistance level, because it's also the daily 50 moving average here in Bitcoin. And if you are looking for a bigger pullback to get in because you'd like to buy more or you missed out, that's where I think it may come from. If we take a look at ETH, against Bitcoin, what's pretty cool about this, ETH against Bitcoin here on the daily, is this is all pretty choppy. Whilst I think this is a bullish pattern, look, we have done a really nice ETH against Bitcoin from the Malo, a really nice 5 waves up, followed by what I think is a 3-wave correction. So at some point, I think we are going to launch, and ETH is going to strongly outperform, and I'm kind of looking at this as a corrective pattern for another swing higher. I really like how we're holding above the daily 200 moving average here. But for now, we have to say that everything is going up. And if you look around most markets, Solana's having a nice bounce. Some Solana meme coins are having a really nice bounce. Some other coins that we're going to take a look at are making kind of really interesting bottoming patterns. AAVE is one of those we'll take a look at. So let's take a look at ETH, US dollar, which is also having this really nice bounce, just like Bitcoin. And here we are coming up now. Because this is an inside, so this whole swing is inside this bigger swing, I kind of draw, you can't really, you put your fibs like this. So our 50% level is a little bit more of a range rather than a hard level. Sometime between 3,390 and 3,430. However, really I suppose, let's move this up here. I think around 3,400 and this previous swing high, we are likely to meet some resistance. If we put our weekly moving averages on, we're holding very nicely above this. We haven't got any moving average resistance above us. So really it's only kind of halfway back of the swing. But if we go down to the daily, we can see in ETH dollar, just like Bitcoin, around these levels, we have got this daily 50 moving average, which just like Bitcoin is support and resistance. And potentially it's going to give us a little bit of a trouble here. Or if you're looking at ETH and wishing that you bought a little bit more, I think that 3,450 around there, 3,400, we could see a little bit of a pullback. I'm going to revise that and say, if we have a strong close today or this week above this level, then we are going to go to the top of this range that we are in. The horizontal puts us around here, up here around 3,900. And then I'm going to say that this is probably a three-wave correction, and we're starting a much stronger wave 3 of 3, or you know, a final swing higher to new highs. I think we go to 5,000 next in ETH, which are kind of 1.618 projections for where we are. But obviously we need to break out. So that's what I'm looking for in ETH. So short term, we're a little bit too overbought to buy it here, aren't we? 3,300 though, these fib levels from the low to high have been pretty good support. That's where our hourly 20 moving average is. So if we are to see a nice little pullback here, 3,300 isn't a terrible level to buy for that swing to test that 50% level. But if you're looking for a bigger kind of longer term hold, really you kind of want a daily, a couple of days pullback or some red before you jump in. So short-term trades, I think, yes, there's some nice swings up to the 50% level, and we'll see what happens there. Especially, you know, if you get in and then we close above it, that wouldn't be a bad idea, but potentially some resistance ahead. Same thing here, if we look at Ripple, which has been really strongly outperforming and had a pretty interesting bullish close above the daily 20 moving average, where we capped the previous swing high. Daily 50 moving average, if we get above it, we are likely to swing higher. If I go out here, this is a weekly. These are pretty interesting fib levels, and we thought that this 0.383 level would be support, and we have bounced really, really nicely from it. It is possible, therefore, that we are going to break out from this consolidation. But whilst we're in the middle here, underneath these daily moving averages, look how much trouble we had in April on the weekly when we tried to get above these weekly moving averages. I think it's unlikely that we're going to break straight above it. And if we look at it on the daily, we can see where we are pretty clearly here. We are testing these swing highs from April, and we're testing the daily 200 moving average, which we can look back and see is pretty interesting support and resistance every time we've kind of tested it. So again, really nice bounce, 5 waves up, a nice little 3-wave correction here, or, you know, back test these daily moving averages for another go would be a good look. If we close above it all, you could see some accelerated moves before we get a bigger pullback. So you kind of need to be a little bit quicker. So everything has bounced really nicely. Not quite clear that we are in an upswing yet. So what else is in the crypto land is bouncing really well? For me, these Bitcoin associated coins, so BCH and BSV. Look at this lovely, you know, false breakdown here. So this is a typical crypto pattern. Let's take everything off. You know, when you test the previous lows and you can't, and this is a monthly candle, we're setting up a really bullish monthly reversal here on a really false breakdown underneath the low from 2023. If we look at this on the weekly, you know, this weekly candlestick was pretty bullish. It closed more than 50% up on our breakdown candle. So for me, you know, this has got a little bit of a shakeout. The problem is, let's put some lines back on. The first problem is that when you make a new low like this, the people who didn't like this, so the people who've had it since the beginning here and who didn't like this dip, as soon as you come back to these levels, they're like, oh, thank God, I'm going to sell and get out here. I do think that we are likely to see more upside. I'm always looking for confluence, but we are going to have a little bit of trouble here while the people who didn't like getting shaking out are going to sell now that they're back here and buy something else like Bitcoin. So big picture though, for the first time, we are holding above the daily 20 moving average. Last time we did this was May, middle of May, and we continued higher to the daily 50 moving average. So I think these little pullbacks should see more upside for BSV, And for me, the target's going to be 54, because 54 is a big 236 retrace all the way from the highs we made in March 2024. So it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be particularly bumpy when we get to these highs and we get to around 50, because not just a round number, previous swing high, but the daily 50 moving average is around this 50 price. I think we should continue above it, but it could get a little bit bumpy back and forward in the middle here, but then I'm looking for it to continue higher. Holding above 54 obviously comes back to these swing highs. We see 66, 68 and potentially 80. This one, obviously, the Mt. Gox are not selling the handing out back BSV. They are handing back BCH. Now, if we look at this on the monthly, obviously, this didn't have a false breakdown. This is quite a bullish pattern here in BCH back to these monthly moving averages. It's looking pretty interesting. And if we look at this on the weekly, this is a very nice three-wave pullback to these weekly moving averages. A pretty cool place to bounce from. If we were then to get back above this weekly 20 moving average, which is a little bit higher at 408, I think that we could say the three-wave correction is over and we could see more upside in BCH as well. Until then, unfortunately, we are stuck in between flat sideways weekly moving averages, and this is a little bit of a sideways range, and this previous swing low becomes one of those levels that people didn't like. We held it, and when we get back up here, they are likely to sell. So we're going to be in a little bit in the chop zone until we get above that. But holding above 408, we could see more upside, I think, in BCH. Okay, so if we take a look at Solana, we have reached some resistance. So we had a pretty bullish move today above the daily 50 moving average, and we can see in Solana that's also the top of this sideways range. So we had a funky double bottom, where Solana loves to do this. Look, this low here, we test the lows with a false breakdown and a bullish reversal. Here we had the low on the 24th of June. We retested this low with a little fakey false breakdown, and we bounced back above it. And now here we are back at the top of the sideways range. You can see when we did this here, again, we got stuck in a little bit of a sideways range before we broke out. So here we're in this position here. We could see a little bit of a pullback here. And if we're going to stay bullish and keep going in Solana, we need to hold above this daily 50 moving average that we're looking above right now. I'm not going to say that we're holding above it until we close above it. Potentially, we could see a little bit of a pullback then towards these moving averages, and no breakout yet until we're outside of this sideways range. But this bounce has given us some really nice move in Solana meme coins and a whole bunch of other stuff, which let's take a look at some of them. So let me find out where I am. First one we're gonna I'm gonna take a look at BitSense or Tau, because this is for me quite bullish pattern. So when you get a strong move like this, so we had a double bottom in Tau, broke out of this sideways range that we were in for 3-4 days, back to the 20 moving average, nice pullback, back above it. Now we should head higher to this daily 50 moving average, and if we get above this daily 50 moving average and we see more swing highs, then I think that we have completed this big three-wave correction, really nice pullback to this previous swing low, and we could see this daily 200 moving average come into focus next at 435. But before we even think about that, we really do need to take out these previous highs in this daily 50 moving average. And we can see that previously we've really struggled with it. We've had false breaks above it and then collapse back underneath it. So not only do we need to break above this level, we need to hold above it. It's 307 in Tau. So we are seeing some nice moves, but we're not quite in an uptrend yet in some of these. This one, when it does move, really does move. So not just these, but let's take a look. For example, this is near. So this looks to me like a very nice three-wave correction, equal measured move. If we measure it from the high that we made here to this low, we didn't quite tag this daily 50 moving average. Now, well, I have a kind of rule, right? When you do an equal measured move like this, I measure where the 61.8 is, where this swing is 61.8 is the first swing and the equal measured move. And I kind of have a rule, if you get back above this 61.8 level, that's it, you finished and you're going up again. So here we are testing this really important resistance level, 5.59. Again, here's the weekly 20 moving average. Here's the top of our sideways range. And if we look at it on the daily, we can see, are we having a little, we keep washing back and forward through this 200 moving average. So we need to say that this horizontal level is really key for if we're going to keep going higher when I look at near. And so holding above 5.6, holding above this daily 50 moving average, we'll see more upside. Otherwise, we have to say that this little zone here, daily 50 moving average, this is pretty tough resistance, and we could struggle first time and end up making, again, like a lot of these coins, we could end up making a bigger bottoming pattern before we break out. So if you are looking at the moves that we've made over this weekend and you've got FOMO and you think you've missed out, as soon as you think that and you think, oh, I have to buy it because it'll just never come back and go without me, that's usually when you tend to get a little bit of a bigger pullback, and I feel like that's where we are. There are some really nice bottoming patterns out there. Let's take a look here. This is a bit of an OG coin. This is AAVE. Look at this bottoming pattern we have been in since, gosh, June of 2022. Whenever I see a double bottom or something like this, which is what we've got here on the weekly, I'm always looking for what happens when we get to the top of this range. So here's our, if you like, and if this is not the double bottom that we think it is, it will just be an ABC. Either way, we can use those measured moves for our targets. So let me find it here. So if I measure from this low to this high, I'll line it up properly, don't worry. We've broken above the 61.8 level, which we said, remember, is normally resistance. And we've broken above the daily 200 moving average. We should continue to 115, which is the equal measured move and the sideways top of this range. And if we're going to keep going higher, then 98, or that round number 100 really, which is basically where our 200-day moving average is in AAVE, will hold as support. So if you're looking at this and thinking, this is quite nice, then that's where you would be looking for a pullback to hold. If you already bought some down here on this double bottom, then this kind of needs to hold if we're going to keep going higher, 98.7 on a daily close. If we look at this on an hourly, then we're basically looking for a nice correction, very similar to the scale of this one here, if we're going to keep going higher in AAVE. But big picture, yeah, this is a pretty nice bigger, sorry about my dog, I don't know what the hell's going on. Yeah, when we look at these moving averages lined up bullish, we are potentially setting up a really nice launch higher in AAVE. So we've talked about Sol. Let's take a look at a couple. So we talked about Tau. The other one that I really like, as you know, I've been playing with, was KHAI. Let's see if I can find KHAI. Here we go. This is having a really nice move. Now, let's take everything off and go to the weekly in this one. Because this is another one where, just like BSV that we just looked at, the false breakdown underneath this previous lows. And wow, did we get a really nice bullish reaction. In terms of, if you're a candlestick trader and you look at this is a bullish harami. When you get an inside bar that closes more than 50% up of the big down bar that got you here, that's a bullish reversal. If you can't close more than 50% up, you're still going down. So we should, in this one, see some more upside. When we look at where we are, we've got no weekly moving averages anywhere near. And here we are, what we're trying to do in KHAI is hold this daily 20 moving average to continue high. You can see that this 20 moving average has been resistance in this most recent swing since June, holding above us. Above it should get us back to the top of this range here, around 0.54. What does that represent? That represents these previous swing highs in the daily 50. However, when I looked at fibs and all of those, and I lined everything up from the high and low, I actually think that we key level for me for more upside is going to be 0.44, 0.45. It's 50% of this most recent swing from the high on the 19th of June. It's the 236 fib from, it's the 38.2, sorry, from this high here in May, and it's the 236 from the all-time highs. So 0.45 for me, and it's the back test of this breakdown level, seems to be, for me, the first kind of target that I am looking for. So again, we need to hold above this daily 20 moving average. I'm looking at this on an hourly. We have stalled a little bit, a nice little three-wave correction then. Should be a pullback for more upside. I really like KHAI for telling you when this is going up again. So I'm looking for a 1, 2, 3. Might not be an equal measured move. We might end up, doing a little bit of sideways like this, or it might be a pretty classic three-wave correction. But for me, key support, what I don't want to see a close back underneath if we're done going up here, is I don't want to see a close back underneath 0.3. So as long as we hold 0.3, I'm looking for 0.44. So basically for 0.45 and then 0.6 next in KHAI. Okay, I hope that's useful. Just stay calm and focus on getting really good entries this week. Don't buy breakouts. Don't buy, oh my god, it's going without me, it's never going to come back for me. I think this week could be pretty volatile. There isn't really anything in the kind of news calendar. I feel like we're in an expect the unexpected week. But are these bounces off the lows in corrective patterns pretty bullish? Yeah, they're really encouraging, especially, when I look at Bitcoin, really, really encouraging moves. It's just going to be a bit bumpy until we get back above these moving averages.